Welcome everybody to the GSL Code S round of 8. Tonight is the first day. We have a couple of great matches coming your way. My name is Valdez. Tonight with me is Wolf. How are you doing tonight, good sir?
I'm doing great. I'm ready for some Pro Masters and Pro Masters to start the night off. And here is the lovely Curie, who's going to be starting us off here, most likely with an interview.
시드자들이 대거 탈락하는 가운데 종족별 밸런스에서만큼은 균형을 이루고 있는데요. 올해 마지막 시즌 치열한 승부 끝에 8강에 이름을 올린 선수들 명단 확인해 보겠습니다.
Let's take a look at the brackets
자,
first
지난
here.
시즌에 이어서 8강에 오른 선수는 한지원, 도성주, 이병렬 뿐이고요. 나머지 새로운 선수들이 8강 대진을 채웠습니다. 독특한 점은 백동준배, 김도우, 주성욱대 이신영 이렇게 GSL 우승자간 매치가 두 개가 탄생했는데요. 금요일이면 진에어 그린윙스의 챔피언 대진도 만나보실 수가 있습니다. 이 밖에도 무려 13시즌 만에 8강에 오른 고병재 선수, 3연속 8강을 기록한 이병렬 선수의 끊임없는 이 도전 행보도 주목해 보시기 바라겠습니다. 자, 파죽지세 한지원 선수가 양대 결승에 성공할 수 있을지 그 부분도 주목해 보시면 즐거울 것 같은데요. 자, 오늘 8강 2경기에 나서는 선수들은 어떤 마음을 갖고 있을지 이분들부터 만나보겠습니다. 자, 오늘 8강에 함께하는 백동준 선수와 김도우 선수 나왔습니다.
안녕하세요.
네, 두 분 이렇게 딱 친한 선수분들끼리 8강 1경기를 치르게 됐습니다. 저희가 김도우 선수의 마음은 미리 확인을 했어요. 굉장히 싫으신 것 같더라고요.
You two are very close friends. How do you feel playing against each other?
도우 형 약간 인정 안 하고 있어가지고 그냥 오늘 그냥 재밌게 게임해야 될 것 같아요.
I actually don't really acknowledge Classic as a very strong cross player.
준비는 잘 되셨어요?
But I think today's games will be really fun.
솔직히 동준이 이제 VOD를 보면 못하거든요.
네.
못하는데 애가
If you watch Deer's
되게 막
VODs,
개념
it
없이
seems like
패기로
he's
막해서
not that good of a
이기더라고요.
player, actually.
좀 자기 성격대로 좀 개념 없이 하던데
네.
저는 뭐 그 점을
He
잘
has a
알고
very
있기 때문에
aggressive personality.
그 점만
And
조심하면
you can
제가
see
올라갈
that
거예요.
through his games.
네,
He shows it
오늘
in his
멘탈을
games.
잡아야 될 것 같다 하셨는데
If
이미
I'm just
승리전에
careful
돌입한
about
것
that
같은
in these
모습이네요.
games of
백동준
StarCraft,
선수
I should be
멘탈
able to advance
어떠세요?
today
네,
easily.
저는 괜찮아요.
괜찮아요. 오늘 경기할 때 백동준 선수는 어떤 부분에 좀 주목을 해야 할 것 같아요?
You're
김도우
saying
선수
he feels fine.
네,
And what is your main
서로 스타일을
focus
잘 알다
for
보니까
tonight?
약간 맞춤을
We know each
둘 다
other's
할 것
styles
같아요.
really well.
진짜 심리전이 제일 중요할 것 같아요.
평상시에 김도 선수 어때요? 좀 독한 부분이 있나요?
So controlling mentality tonight is going to be the key, and I have to wholeheartedly agree with you on the statement. I think the tempo of this best of 5 is so important.
자, 오늘 두 분 경기 예상 스코어 어떻게
Deer
생각하고 계실지
says that
궁금하네요.
Classic
백동준
himself is
선수는 어떻게
also
생각하세요?
an aggressive player, and he does whatever he wants.
3대1로 제가 이길 거라고 예상하고 있어요.
네, 그래도 한 판을
And Deer
이기는
actually
정도로
expects that he will take the series 3-1.
1세트 이기면 3대0으로 이길 것 같아요.
아, 그래요. 1세트를
If he wins the first set, he thinks he's going to
자,
get a
이번에는
3-0.
저희가 사전에
Classic has
맵을
to say
정하는
about
방식으로
Deer.
해서 많이
Not all that
준비를
much
해오실
respect when it comes to
것이라고
StarCraft
생각을
here.
하고 있습니다. 팬들도 기대를 하고 있는데 자, 친한 만큼 두 분 서로에게 한마디씩 하고 시작을 해볼까요? 먼저 김도우 선수가 이번에
Any comments to
먼저
each
한마디
other
해보시죠.
before the match has started?
네, 평소에도 되게 깝죽거리는데 이제 오늘도 되게 그럴 것 같은데
네,
경기에서는 확실하게
You're always foolish and
끝내주도록
silly.
하겠습니다.
네,
And your
깐죽거린다,
ordinary
난전을
life.
만든다로 해석이 됩니다. 백동준 선수
But
화답해
you should be
주시죠.
more calm and collected
오늘 이기든 지든
inside the
좀
booth if you
재밌을
want to
것
play
같아요,
good games
경기가.
against
그래서
me.
굉장히 저도 기대되고 최선을 다해 준비했으니까 좋은 결과.
So I'm looking forward to playing against Classic. I prepared very well for today's matches.
자, 서로를 잘 알고
So
친한
look
만큼
forward to our
경기 전부터 살벌한
says Deer
매치들이
to close things
오갔는데요.
out here
과연
in this
어떤
interview.
선수가 웃게 될지 오늘
I think
경기
that,
본격적으로 시작해 보겠습니다.
All right, we're going to take a look at a little player video first.
Every minute like a casualty, mortified misery. It's no conspiracy. I'm just feeding my appetite. I'm just feeding my appetite. Don't you know I broke the mold like a hammer to a landmine? You better stick to what you know, 'cause I ain't playing just to rewind. I'm coming back to outlast every outcast. Transcend.
What a cool video. to hype up this round of 8. That's pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I was just going to say before we jumped in that video, that was pretty hype. I think that Deer said the truest thing of all when he said that basically getting the advantage in the series is the most important thing going to this PvP. Obviously, these guys know each other's playstyles pretty well. The fact that they're friends is even more evident in this interview. Even though Deer likes to trash talk a lot in general, I think in this case, this was kind of almost like a manufactured interview from these two.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, Classic, I think, was doing a bit more of the trash talking there. He's like, oh, I'm going to 3-0 you easy as long as I get this first set. Classic himself kind of identifying that, you know, that momentum, especially in a PvP best of 5, is quite important.
Yeah, definitely so. I feel like Deer is going to try to play for the late game in this series. Now, most people might be surprised by that notion, but watching Classics play versus Hero in the round of 16, he showed a lot of holes in his late game PvP. You know, weak to Blink harassment, weak to, you know, just Zealot run-bys and things of that nature. So if it goes late, if Deer can actually go for that kind of harassment, it might actually mess with Classic, but getting there is going to be the challenge, of course. And I'm really curious to see what our map bans are going to be going to this as well, because you might get an idea of what these two players are thinking.
Well, let's first take a look at where these guys do sit in terms of WCS rankings and just how they got here. Deer 23rd, he has no chance of getting to BlizzCon Classic. On the other hand, will be there.
Yeah, he's guaranteed. You can see their win rates in GSL, but more importantly, how they got there. Deer getting first place in his round of 16 group, defeating Rogue 2-0, dropping a map to Byung. Whereas Classic had a bit of a tougher road getting out in second, just narrowly defeating Hero in a PvP, also defeating SOS in a PvP, so 2 PvPs he played recently, both of which went to Game 3.
Deer also defeated Byul 2-1 in the round of 32. That's really impressive. I think Byul has kind of gotten even that much more stronger since then, but even taking out him as well as Fantasy is quite strong, whereas Classic getting out second in both the round of 32 and the round of 16 here.
Yep.
You know, if you knew nothing about these two players, maybe you would say, you know, oh, Deer looks really dominant here, especially in the round of 16. Rogue and Byung, very strong players, but I still would have to give a slight edge here to Classic.
If you take a look at Classic's Protoss versus Protoss record as well, he's got a much cleaner record overall, especially when it comes to better series, or rather a full series. He's played a lot more than Deer has, so that's just something else to keep in mind. He has a lot more experience in the matchup in general, and because he makes it further in these tournaments, including Star League, which is the records are not shown, or he is the defending champion currently. If you look at his WCS ranking, it's reflected there. Deer, definitely a player that is one of Samsung's greatest Protoss players, especially for best of ones. He gets sent out in Pro League quite a bit. Of course, his team is now out of Pro League, so this is really important for him. This is his chance to, as the highlight video showed, go back to his 2013 when he is a GSL champion.
Yeah, another thing to note about that is that this is all he has to really prepare for. He's only got this one, individual league, whereas Classic, he's got some big games coming up in the Pro League Grand Finals. Let's take a look at what Deer thinks of Classic and what Classic thinks of Deer.
Notice that, and this goes again to what I was saying about Deer maybe wanting to play for the late game, what Deer thinks of Classic's attack, 9. You know, taking a look and saying basically he thinks that his attack is quite, he's an aggressive player, is basically what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Look at the mental for both these guys. 0.5 for Classic and 3 for Deer. Not much to say for both the players, as well as the preparation for Classic is a 1.
Yeah, but Classic, on the other hand, thinks Deer's preparation is really strong, giving him an 8. Both obviously thinking very highly of their strategy as well. And I mean, this is kind of a joke sort of thing, but I feel like there is some truth mixed into this, how they actually feel about their opponents here.
Yeah, I mean, taking a look at Deer, I don't really think he thinks that, the defending Star League champion, it has 1 defense, 1 preparation, first of all, and 0.5 mental. I don't think that's true. Maybe he's just joking around a bit. As you can see, the little quote underneath his portrait, it's his Classic with a little happy face. And Classic's just like, stop misbehaving.
Yeah, he said that in the interview as well, basically. And that's just an interesting sort of basic group of stats here. It kind of gives us a better picture. Both players have their HOT6 bar below their profiles actually show us that they're both in great condition today. We saw both Deer and Classic in the makeup room earlier, both of them looking fairly confident, not really nervous. This could go either way. I feel like a lot of people expect Classic to win, but I think if Classic does not take Deer seriously, this could be an upset.
Yeah. But just even taking a look at what Classic had to say about Deer, obviously he's very close friends with them. I'm sure they've practiced a bunch before. He definitely knows what to prepare for when he is going up against Deer. And we are taking a look at Deer here in the booth. And we get to see his recent 10 matches versus Protoss.
Yeah, he's 3-7 overall, losing to Panic, Milkshake, and Rain. Defeating Creator, but losing to Pig Baby. That's a big ouch. Then a win over Classic back in round 3. And a few losses against Hero, Parting Stats, and his win versus Rain from the Kespa Cup qualifier is quite some time ago.
That's it's kind of interesting because to get here, he defeated 2 Zergs and 2 Terrans. He actually has not played one single Protoss in the GSL for this season.
I think that it inherently gives him somewhat of an advantage because there's a lot less for Classic to study of Deer, whereas Classic himself just played 2 best-of-3 PvPs in his group, so there's a lot of information to study, and I feel like Classic again showed a lot of weakness in the late game in those PvP matches. Harassment-based styles really kind of breaking him apart, even though he won both. Some holes were shown.
Yeah, and even Classic himself giving a little tip of the hat towards Deer, saying, hey, he's great at preparing for these kinds of series. I'm sure Classic is going to try to tighten up that late game, whereas Deer, as you said before, I wouldn't be surprised if he does try to go and play into that late game.
Classic, on the other hand, the defending Star League champion, does very well in the GSL, also a GSL champion. This guy is solid. His most recent matches versus Protoss, 8-2. Those 2 losses being 1 versus SOS and Hero.
And look at the IEM Shenzhen run, defeating Yohwa, Rain, Hero, and Parting. When Parting was on top of his game, of course, making it to the finals there. That was one of the most stacked Protoss tournaments this year. So this guy definitely a master of the matchup. Got through 2 very strong Protosses to get here as well in the round of 16. As we mentioned before, that matchup against Zest, kind of scary. Zest definitely made quick work of him, but at the same time, I'd still say Classic's PvP is at least ahead above Deer's right
Result-wise, absolutely. But, when you look at those tournament results, especially the Shenzhen ones, those are just back-to-back-to-back-to-back-to-back matches. No prep time, not a week in advance. All right, Deer banning Terraform, Classic banning Vonnie Research Station. This makes sense to me. So we're going into Echo, Expedition Loss. Then our big maps are going to be in set 3 and 4, Cactus Valley and Iron Fortress. Then we're going back to another similar map to Echo in set 5 for Coda.
It's kind of interesting that the first map that we do see here is the map that both these players, in terms of results so far for the GSL, are doing quite well on. Both of them are undefeated, so
that's insane.
This is a great matchup to start the night on.
Also knows Classic is 4-0 on Echo in PvP, so clearly likes the map a lot.
Yeah. Whereas Deer's 4-0 against all, has not played a single game against Protoss, as we said before.
In fact, Deer has no versus Protoss records in the GSL on any of these 5 maps. Yep. Just goes to show how much more Classic PvP has been shown in recent times. Somehow on Cactus Valley, a pay sneaked through instead of a loss there.
I don't know.
I'm like, Deer is 0-2. 0 wins, 2 losses on Cactus Valley, but Classic is 0 wins and 1 pay on Cactus Valley. What does it mean?
No one knows. This is the English stream. No one has any idea. Could mean anything.
But just some of the late game, again, I want to point out Classic's recent weaknesses. I can't do as much to Deer because there hasn't been as much recent PvP shown. Like, some of the stats we had were from Season 1 Kespa Cup qualifiers for his PvPs. Classic showed 2 best-of-3s versus SOS and Hero. Late game Zealot harass, late game Blink Stalker harass was kind of picking him apart, even though he ended up winning the series.
Yeah. Best-of-5 PvPs to me are always very entertaining because there's so many different mind games that can go into it. You can go for very early cheeses, some kind of forward gate, especially on these 2-player maps. Or you could just try to play for the late game, especially on a map like Echo. You can get up to 3 bases pretty easily. Then it really comes down to which one of these players is going to be more strong in that late game. And who's going to be more greedy in the mid game. Because generally you can't end it in that time.
Yeah. So we're just having a few last-minute settings being arranged here, as Classic needed a bit more time, and Deer unable to type in Korean on his keyboard.
Oh, so that's what he meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's actually attempting to talk to the PD in English because that is all he can use at this moment in time. That happens all the time, actually, on the Korean keyboard. It's really annoying. It happens to both you and I.
Oh yeah, it's
at home.
It's really frustrating when that occurs. Probably a recently installed OS on the PC or something.
Yeah. Must be something like that. But guys, we do have the countdown starting here. We are very close to getting into our first game. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Definitely go ahead and tell your friends. This is going to be a very interesting PvP to start the night. And then, of course, later we do have that CVT between Byul and Gumiho. So you're going to want to have to tune in here to all the StarCraft we do have tonight.
Yeah, I think a lot of people really looking forward to Gumiho, considered the best mech player in Korea, versus Byul, the best Zerg versus mech. It should be an incredible series coming up later on tonight.
Well, guys, the map is about to load it up here. We're about to jump into map number 1 here, Echo, for this epic PvP between Deer and Classic. Let's jump into game number 1 right now.
HOT6 GSL 시즌 3.
Down here in the bottom right, in the red, one of our Protoss players.
삼성 갤럭시 디어.
Deer. Up against the favorite to the top left in blue. It is Classic.
SK텔레콤 T1 클래식.
We say the names. We do that.
Us Pearly Casters, that's what we do.
You know what we should do? We should do what the Korean commentators do and just say their Korean names instead of their IDs, and then their IDs will come up.
We could do that. Look at how they actually Romanize his name, Do-U. It's a big U and a dash in the middle. It's
actually tough, you know, because a lot of people will write it Daewoo, which is just simply not, it's just not really correct.
Daewoo
or Do-Woo. So Do-Woo, sorry, not Daewoo. Daewoo is another name that is written that way, but not Classic's name. All right, so let's talk about. There's Deer's champion portrait. Both players are champions. Deer was on the team Seoul at the time. A sponsor of this team that was kind of basically the shell, the former pieces of STX as that team disbanded. Had a fairly weak performance in the GSTL at the end of all things, but Deer becoming a champion at that time. We're going to see 2 gases for Deer quicker, whereas Classic, with the extra mills, opting for a much faster cybernetics core. And we'll have to keep a close eye on what he does with his chrono energy. He's already sending a probe scout across the map. Deer is doing the same.
I think that might have actually been a slightly faster gate, maybe a 12 or even an 11 gate out of Classic. We weren't quite looking at his base at the time, but definitely coming out much, much faster here with that Cybernetics core. And coming up here now to 150. Gas going to throw down a Twilight Council very quickly here.
I suspect Proxy Stargate from Deer, although his pylon is very late, if that's what he's actually got planned. Meanwhile, Classic will scout the main base. And Deer starting a Stalker and Mothership core, so he could still follow this up with a Proxy Stargate. It would be very delayed. And Classic, a bit of a miscontrol in this probe, actually eats some minerals, so won't be able to do any further worker harassment. It's probably going to want to leave. Interesting pylon cancel there at the top right. I'm actually going to check to see if Classic saw that. He did not, so weird fake out there. It is going to be a Proxy Stargate, though, from Deer.
Oh, and look at this. It's going to be a very, very fast Dark Shrine out of Classic. And so Deer, you know, he's probably going to go for delayed oracles here, very close to the base of Classic, but maybe he gets in there too late and he's going to have no detection at home.
Right now, Classic, if he sends the probe back home and checks the common Proxy Stargate location and sees this, he knows he's basically got a free win in this game. Now Deer is going to send his Stalker across the map. Classic has a Stalker waiting. There's no way for him to scout, as he did not send his Mothership core across the map either. So he has no forms of detection except the Oracle, which will come out, but will most likely use all of its energy. If he makes 2 Oracles, which is almost unheard of in this matchup, then that might be what saves him. Classic is also researching Blink for the follow-up as well, so he's got a ton of gas invested into this.
Yep. While the Stargate is finishing up here, it is going to be an Oracle, of course, coming out very quickly, but that Dark Shrine about to finish up. Classic going to try to put in even more forward pylon, and Deer has not scouted any of this.
And Deer is also not making a safety robo at home, which is going to cost him big. He will scout this with his Oracle, and will need to queue a second one. But if he doesn't have a sentry, that first DT is going to walk right in the front door, and that could spell disaster. If it cannot be killed, the DT will get infinity more kills than an Oracle ever could hope to. Here come those first DTs. The Oracle's on the way at the same time. Let's see how quickly these players react.
Oracle coming in now. Classic does have one Stalker over here, but the Oracle can kind of just ignore that for now. He's going to delay a lot of mining time, but he is going to see this Dark Shrine, and he has to prepare at home. But I think it's just too late.
Yep.
2 GTs in the main.
He has enough money for a second Oracle, and he will get one. And this could end up being a base trade, mind you. Nexus Cannon goes down. Not sure why. That was way too preemptive. Simply has no vision of what he's overcharging. A little bit of a panic reaction here from Deer. Meanwhile, the Stalker that he had at home just bought him simply enough time, Classic, to get a second Stalker out. And he's going to have Blink in just a second, mind you. And that's going to make it a little bit easier to win a base trade if that's what this comes down to.
Yeah. Doesn't look like he'll be able to totally kill Deer here, but he is doing some critical damage. Even going to save one of the DTs. Still delaying the mining with one of them. He's essentially cut off all production here of Deer. He's supply blocked, and everything is unpowered in his main.
Yeah, and his Oracle they sent back was out of energy, and his second Oracle finally gets back. Some more probes going down, destroys that last DT there, but he's now 6 workers down, and Classic has Blink, so he can actually counterattack and do a lot with this. And if he kills the Oracles with Blink, guess what? Then there's no more detection.
Yeah. Well, there is this one Oracle left over, but I think Deer may just go down to a straight-up Blink attack here. Just now getting all of his buildings online, and no Blink for himself, and less units. Just looking pretty terrible in this game for Deer.
Yeah, I mean, how many, like, it's just not a thing, it's not a build to actually go for Proxy Oracle into Twilight Council. Why? Because you died to this, and also you died to Blink Stalker pushes you. He would have died to either. It's just that DTs are going to be how he dies here. He took a big risk, and it's not going to pay off, and now Nexus Cannon is not going to be enough to save him. He is trying to get his own second Dark Shrine in this game up to try to counter, get DTs, but he's not even going to be able to afford DTs with how many probes he's losing here.
Just too many Stalkers now. You can just ignore the Photon Overcharge. He's just gonna entirely just kill every single probe in the main. And this Oracle is going to try to come back and do some damage, but with Blink Stalkers here, should be able to hold it off.
And with the Oracle over there, GG. He's got a DT in the main with no detection. Builder-wise, a superior builder for Classic. This is why almost every PvP build has a safety robo. The safety robo will weaken the build. What you're teching to will delay your expansion or decrease your Stalker count, but it keeps you safe against Blink Stalker aggression with Immortals, and it keeps you safe against DTs with Observers. If you cut it out entirely, I'm not even sure what he was hoping to achieve with that Twilight Council. He gets a late Blink or late DTs with the Nexus. That's the only thing that makes sense, is try to harass, then go into DTs to kind of keep that tempo advantage, but just an insane risk because there's this big glaring hole in your play. No detection.
I think that's actually the same build that Classic did to Zest in the Pro League Round 4 finals, where he just put the Stargate in his main, but he went for it quite late, you know, after the Mothership Core and the Stalker came out. Didn't really do any damage, and then he just went straight into Twilight Council. Meanwhile, Zest was getting an expansion and a Robo. So even though he didn't go for DTs, he still got majorly far ahead against that build. So from what we've seen so far, professional play doesn't seem like the strongest build. Maybe Deer was trying to bring that in, use one of Classic's builds and defeat him in a way. I'm sure there must be some strengths to the build that we just haven't seen yet, and that's why they are using it. But, you know, with
I mean, I think it would have been really strong versus like a risky fast expand with sentries or something. That would have just totally shreked it, but it's just not what we saw here.
Yeah. Well, Classic able to take the first game with a very quick Dark Shrine. That's going to be annoying for Deer, having that in the back of his head. The set number 2 here, the map is going to be on Expedition Lost, another 2-player map. Should be a fun one.
That it should. Map's loading up. These players look ready. Let's go into game number 2, Deer versus Classic here on Expedition Lost.
HOT6 GSL 시즌 3.
Down here in the bottom left, in the red, Protoss that lost that last game, he is
삼성 갤럭시 디어.
Up against his opponent to the top right.
SK텔레콤 T1 클래식.
2 one-time Protoss one-time GSL champion Protosses, but Classic also has Shenzhen Championship under his belt in recent times, as well as being the defending Star League champion.
Yeah, definitely a bit more in form, even though he didn't have the most impressive game against Zest. This is going to be an interesting build here at a Deer this time around, going for a pretty fast gate on 11.
Yeah, Classic going for the 13 Eco Gate, if you will. And we'll have a slightly better worker mining in the early game. Shout out to the lovely Bonjour DE community. Most likely a German community, I guess. Shout outs to you.
Shout outs to all the communities that are watching us, for sure. Thank you for joining us once again.
Sorry if you're not German, by the way.
Yeah.
That was just an educated guess.
It's all right. It actually stands for disenchanting. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, really exciting times in StarCraft these days, of course, with the end of the WCS Championship. It looks like Lil Bo is going to be going to BlizzCon. That is quite fantastic.
And can I just say that was one of the most exciting PvP series of all time. Constant harassment, from both players, counterattacks, counter-aggression. That's the way that I feel like PvP is the most fun to watch. And I really do feel, and this is coming from a guy who normally is very critical of foreign players and has lived and commentated Korean StarCraft for now 4 years, I feel like he has a chance to disrupt some of those players at BlizzCon if they don't take him seriously.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think he's definitely probably the most prepared foreigner to go into that kind of bracket versus 15 other Koreans, especially all the Koreans that have been playing in Korea this entire year.
Yeah.
All of them extremely strong players who can take it on any given day, so.
It's really exciting to see because we've had a history as we see the Stargate come down with chrono boosted stalkers out for Deer, so just kind of trying to control the map with those stalkers to get the Stargate up hidden versus the 2-gate opening from Classic. We've had a few foreigners have great amounts of success versus Koreans, right? You've got Naniwa, you've got Stefano, you've got Scarlet, and now I feel we've got Lil Bo doing very well. And I'm talking about more recent history, of course, other players like Jinro and Hawk, Idra in the past, Thorazine. But we've got these new age foreign players doing well against Koreans, and it's inspiring because I feel like those players are at the highest level of StarCraft 2 right now, competing at its finest form at the end of an expansion, and that's really exciting to me.
Yeah, it's quite impressive as well. I'm really excited to see how he's going to do at BlizzCon in particular. But also straight after that, the launch of Legacy of the Void. That's going to be a new page in the
It's the final.
book of
It's the final
StarCraft, I
part of the
suppose.
trilogy. It's Return of the Jedi of StarCraft, something like that. It's like Return of the King. Like those two trilogies ended with the same kind of title. I wonder who copied the other one. I don't know. You're gonna actually see a crazy amount of tech from Deer here. He goes Stargate into Dark Shrine with an Oracle. He has one stock and one Oracle. He's playing insanely greedy. The Oracle will, of course, force a reaction at home, but Classic, let's see if he makes an Immortal or an Observer out of this first Robo cycle.
I wonder if he was trying to get Classic to scout this and overreact with Blink, and then go straight into, DTs against a build that won't have detection. But Classic following this up with the Robotics and a very aggressive Stalker attack here when there is no Mothership Core in the main because he's going for so much tech Deer here. And now there's a Pylon in his main.
This is just a pressure play here, but with a Warping of Stalkers, Deer should be able to repel us on the high ground with probes. He's going to lose some probes for it, but again, the Dark Shrine is undetected. There is a very close forward Pylon on the map. This first Warp-In is scary, though. In fact, he's going to even bring two Zealots here. Notice he targets the Stalker with his probes. A very smart choice. The Oracle comes home to help out a little bit. He needs a little bit more time here. Two Zealots coming in to save his gas. He's probably going to warp in one DT at home and one DT for the attack.
Yeah, and still no Observer. Keep that in mind here for Classic. He does need that kind of detection once the DTs do come out. Still a ton of pressure coming out here. And Deer's down to 15 workers.
Let's see if he decides to warp in the first DT at his opponent's base. I think that's definitely the better choice. If he warps in it at home, it gives him time to get an Observer. I wouldn't even want to show this one, to be honest. Now he's going to get Observer out for sure. And anyway, here it comes. Oh, he canceled the Robo! He canceled the Robotics! He does not have a Robo at home. This is about to get a lot more interesting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as to why this build is
He's making
so
two
aggressive
Robos.
Here. I guess he needs to at this point in time. He's also got two Pylons here to power both of these Robos, so that is quite advantageous here for Classic.
He actually probably should just go in here and try to ignore the DT and harass probes, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Going to go for this pylon first. Another pylon needs to be made here, so he's going to force another probe over here. He cancels the second robo because he knows without pylon power, it's just simply not going to matter. There's the unpower of that gateway. It's hard to say if that second robotics is powered or not. I think it is, but he's going to remake this one at a hidden location, but
look
scouted.
At this. Yeah, it is scouted, and Deer is going for it right now. Robo's canceled.
I feel so happy right now because I feel like this is the first time in competitive Korean PvP a player goes DTs actually tries to eliminate detection off the map. We never see this, and it makes me happy that finally someone is going to win this way, or at least is favored to win right now. Classic still has a lot of money to hide another robotics.
Yeah, he needs to get another pylon down in a robotics somewhere. Does look like he has one probe at the third base of Deer on this map. Maybe he'll try to hide it in that corner behind the minerals.
Deer does not have enough money to make anything else. He has 2 DTs on the map, and he's going to have to hunt down these stalkers, and they're actually kiting. This is still a winnable game for both players. Let's see how good the micro of Classic is here, because technically speaking, you should be able to kite around the DT and, you know, kill some buildings. If he kills a Nexus, he'll reveal this. The stalkers come back in to finish it off, and this is now going to reveal. Oh! Needs to get it. There he goes. Now he will reveal Deer's structures, and he might just be able to play Ring Around the Rosie and win an elimination race. It's going to be tough with probes at the top of the ramp. Where are actually Deer's probes? That's a good question. He's actually running them now to the other side of the minerals.
I was wondering why Classic did not go for the detection earlier, but now he's finally going for a Stargate, no doubt for an Oracle for that detection.
And because he knows his Nexus was not killed, it only lost its shields back at home, he knows that he's not going to be revealed anytime soon, and so this Stargate is very unlikely to be scouted, especially because it's hidden right underneath Deer's nose at the natural. And this is essentially a base trade. And the reason why the Stargate is such a good choice is he's going to get an Oracle out, which is flying, and Deer has no way of killing that, and it will just simply chase the DT down and eventually kill it. If he had a little bit more money...
I think it's faster than the Observer as well. Can just really get on top of the DTs. He's going to have more mobility on the map. And,
yeah, you're right.
You know, as long as he can get it out, it's going to win them the game regardless. He just needs to get the DTs out of the way first and foremost.
Such great decision making by Classic to save the money and then build what he did. He's actually was working on the Dark Shrine briefly here. You know, he doesn't know for sure. There's only 2. Could be some hidden. But these are the kind of things that usually are not the case. Oh, he finds it! Oh my god! Oh my god! Time Warp goes down! It's not enough! It's not enough!
Unbelievable!
Oh!
That's unbelievable. It's actually, that may just win him the game.
Well,
I mean, he still has. Well, I don't know. He can't make another Stargate and another Oracle here.
That's right, he can't. And he can't make a pylon and another Oracle either. So he's out of luck essentially when it comes to that. But he still has 3 stalkers on the map. Talking about structures, currently Deer still has a lot more. He's got 3 pylons, 2 assimilators, a Twilight Council.
As long as I think it's just going to go straight into like a building base race because the DTs are going to go for the buildings, but this Mothership Core cannot be attacked. So as long as, you know, maybe he gets in the main and kills the buildings of Deer.
It's going to be a race now.
I just don't think he can do it fast enough. He's trying.
The Stalkers here are, you know, they do bonus damage to buildings, and with 3 of them, he might actually be able to win this. But look at this. The DT is just going to defend. He goes for the weakest Stalker first. And these Stalkers can't kite and kill buildings. Let's see how perfect his micro is here. Time Warp going to slow the DT, and he will get this first gateway, but he needs to get a lot more than that. This is doable. This is physically possible. But he just has to literally be perfect, and versus an invisible unit that he can only see a blur of, I'm not so sure if that is going to work out because, as it turns out, these players are human.
Yeah. Keep in mind there are 2 probes on the map here for Classic. He can make 2 assimilators, so he can do that to try to stay alive and slowly pick at the buildings.
You know what? Actually, I think he might do it. Oh, he needs to move the Stalker now. His micro has been perfect.
He needs to be perfect. He can't be taking any damage right now.
Oh my god, if he wins this game will go down in history.
He can't lose the probes. He needs them.
Yeah, he's going to lose 1. The damage is being done. Actually, he's bringing the second DT back because he realizes at this point those Stalkers are actually going to out-DPS him. But this is somewhat risky as well because if he is perfect, even with 2 DTs, he's not going to be able to kill these Stalkers.
Yeah, but against 2 DTs...
He has to micro 2 places at once.
And Classic has committed to killing the buildings with that probe. He's not going to be able to hide any other buildings.
Look at this micro, though! Oh, there goes one, though.
Stalker.
No probes left for Classic, as you mentioned, so can't build any more buildings.
Oh, he has to move the Stalker. At the same time, the probes are getting to work at Classic's buildings here in the main. Another Time Warp does go down, but this Stalker now
As it turns out, he's not perfect. He is human. As soon as the Stalker dies, that will be game. He's going to block him off.
Yeah.
That should be it.
Now it's just about sending those DTs home and cleaning it up. I don't think this Mothership Core has enough damage.
It's actually making an Archon to troll.
That's even better. We'll also just eliminate the Mothership Core just to make sure he 100% wins this game.
I think he's just being funny. GG. Nearly coming back, but what a fun game that was.
That was a sick game, man. And that brings Deer right back into the series. It's 1-1, and that really does highlight the reason why PvP series can be so fun. You get crazy games like this. DTs are on the map for just long enough to take out any source of detection. They find the Stargate that's hidden at the natural. That was kind of an interesting place for Classic to put it.
I like it, though, because it's if I were playing against Classic, it would be the last place I'd check, probably.
Also, he was losing his Nexus, so he was going to be revealed eventually. And maybe even at that point he had lost the Nexus, so maybe he was trying to put it very far away from the DTs.
Definitely a few panicked reactions in that game. For example, making 2 Robos in the main was kind of silly considering that Pylons have less hit points, and that was definitely going to be the first target. Should have instantly hidden a probe, which I believe he had a probe on the map to hide a hidden Robo. That's how most pro players will deal with this situation, is just simply hide a proxy Robo with their like 4 pound for the Blink Stalkers. By the way, cool as hell shirt by Stork, man. I like that. I like that shirt. It's got R2D2 like drawn in graffiti or something.
Pretty cool.
I like that shirt. Stork just a cool guy. I mean,
Classic
that's all I want to say.
he was going for that hidden Robo, but it did get scouted by Deer pretty early on before it was able to get any kind of observer out on the map. Deer was really on top of trying to find those buildings just to make sure that Classic could not get any detection out.
Very few, as I said before, sorry to interrupt, but very few pros actually kill the detection. They usually just go for harass. But if you could actually just have that straight up win condition, you just win. I mean, it's as simple as that. If there's no detection, you win. Period.
Well, guys, map number 3 is going to be Cactus Valley for this PvP. Deer taking that last one in a really crazy game. I hope we get VODs of that one up pretty soon here so everybody can watch that game.
Get hyped, because the rest of the series could look similar. We're finally going to our first big map, though.
It's going to be interesting to see how these players play on this map. Would not be surprised if we do get into a bit of a longer PvP series. We'll see how Classic is able to shape up there and what Deer can do to try to take down Classic in that late game.
That we will see. A bit of a slower load today on our maps.
Bit of a slower load, but the map is finally loaded up here. Let's get straight into game number 3 now on Cactus Valley between Deer and Classic.
HOT6 GSL 시즌 3.
Up here on the top right in the red, winning that last crazy game, he is
삼성 갤럭시 디어.
Down to the bottom left in blue. His opponent.
SK텔레콤 T1 클래식.
So, cross spawns on this map. We have our third Pro versus Pro. The winner will take the lead and will also be put on match point in this best of 5. I have to wonder how Deer is going to open up. We've seen 2 DT openings back to back for both these players, actually both winning. In fact, their respective DT, the Dark Shrine Makers games for them. But, on this bigger map, are we going to see DTs? Are we going to see a more late game oriented plan? Because I feel like it sounds crazy to say this. If anyone, you asked anyone even like a month ago, who's going to win the late game? Is it going to be Deer or Classic? Like 101 out of 100 people would say Classic. And I just see some weaknesses in his late game play. Deer seems to be really confident going into this.
Whoa.
I definitely can't read that. But thank you for calming down. Can't hear me, but I want to thank them anyways.
Does look like Chinese there. May have been Japanese. I'm not 100% sure with that handwriting.
Yeah, that could have been anything. That could have just been some made-up language we don't know. Could have been it could have been aliens down there.
Could have been that.
That handwriting, I'm just not sure. I can read that.
From Australia. Shout out to Team Monkey and Dank Memes crew.
Yeah.
What's up, dang memes grew?
Yeah, the dankest. Whatever that means. Seriously,
we wouldn't know anything about that. You'd have to ask Tasteless.
Yeah. feels bad, man, and whatnot, and not like this. So, as we get into this, this one will certainly be, I feel, a 2-base versus 2-base at the fastest. Just simply because they're cross-spawn, and it's hard to win with, unless you're Billowy, a 3-gate attack of any kind. Hidden Stargates, Hidden Dark Shrine often can work on this map just because it's so hard to scout that. Because as a Pro player, you can put buildings anywhere. Like literally anywhere on this map. You can hide them all sorts of places.
Unfortunately, it is going to be scouted here. The very fast Stargate in the main from Deer.
The one time in StarCraft history where someone scouts on a 4-player map and actually gets lucky enough to scout, but that's why you cancel.
Look at this. He's going to cancel it. This may just be DTs again.
I actually think it will. And he still has a probe on the map. Something else to keep in mind. If Classic sees this probe, he's probably going to follow it. They're going to fight for the Watchtower.
I mean, this is what I was talking about before. You go for that Stargate, forces your opponent into blank, which is going to give them no detection. Usually you keep with that Stargate, but canceling it here after the probe leaves is just going to get you those DTs even faster.
Now, Classic could also be going for DTs, mind you. He has a probe hidden to the bottom right. You're right about this, Dark Shrine for Deer. He could also just be using this as a forward warping point once his blink is ready, which actually is going to be the case.
And that does not look too good for Classic. He is going to be going for blink. Will have no detection. Let's see if he goes for that kind of safe robo build. We also have to see just how close this pylon is going to be for Deer, if he can get it up undetected and actually get DTs into the main.
Shout-outs to the Dark Templar crew going to this series, man. It's just been DTs after DTs. He's going blink after this as well, which I think is really cool because he has enough gas because it's a later Dark Shrine to do this.
That's what Classic did in the first game.
Yep.
Just without the canceled Stargate, of course.
Ooh, safety robo, though. Safety robo in PvP is like wearing a seatbelt in the taxi, especially in Seoul and especially in Korea. You want to get a safety robo. Koreans love DTs, okay?
Yeah.
And Korean taxi drivers can sometimes be dangerous. At least I fear for my life sometimes. So I always wear my seatbelt and I always make a safety robo.
Classic's very smart with this. I mean, you're going to want this robo as fast as possible as well. I think he knows that he can't really do too much damage. Sees that there is no Nexus. Knows that Deer is also going for some kind of one-base build. Could be DTs, could not be. Either way, the robo is going to be very strong for Classic in this game.
100% he just randomly cancels it right now.
He's like, oh, I need my Nexus fast. Like,
he's gonna see this DT. He's literally looking at these stalkers right now. He was clicked on them. Okay.
Well, he does have a
observer on the way.
Back at home. So.
Yep. And this time, this robotics is double powered by 2 pylons, so it's not going to be unpowered. The second DT actually is going to go home to defend. It looks like.
Observer
Get
not
out of there.
Yet, but there it is. Not going to go down. And this is a lot of stalkers. May want to go for a cancel on this Nexus and get a Nexus of his own up very fast.
Let's see how well this DT does defensively. Oh man, if he just sends this Observer, he is going to regret it. I guarantee you Deer is going to come back in.
Well, he does have a second Observer on the way. Deer with his own blink here. But, I mean, look at this. He's got so many stalkers out. Even if a Photon Overcharge does come down, I think it is going to be pretty hard. Classic, though, not going to commit, actually. Going to get it very low. And maybe come in a bit later.
I'm a bit surprised that Deer didn't send that second DT in either. It took some shield damage on the Mothership cores, just kind of checking for it, but it stayed alive. Looks like he's just going to wall the natural now off. But now that this Nexus stays alive and it's continuing to mine, Classic does need to do something. He's a bit hard-pressed to actually respond to this.
Yeah. I mean, he could go in for a cancel. Looks like he's going to scout it out first, see exactly what Deer has gone for the follow-up. You know, maybe he has gone for a robo and he can kind of come in before Deer has many stalkers out. But Deer, or rather Classic at this moment, still has a ton of stalkers, is going to go for the fight here, straight up against the stalkers of Deer.
This just goes to show, even with this Nexus having like almost as little health as a stalker, it just does so much for you in a fight because of that armor. If you target it, you're going to lose so much DPS. And now he wins nothing. He does not win the Stalker fight, nor does he kill the Nexus, and this is a big problem.
Yeah, he should have either committed to killing the Nexus or committing to just trying to fight the Stalkers of Deer straight up. So now he's in a pretty awkward spot where he could get a very late Nexus. I think he's going to have to try to go for just a bum rush on this Nexus. I think he has to take it out at this point. It's so low.
I think even just like a right-click shift back blink is not a bad choice versus this Nexus. He's getting a Dark Shrine up, but Deer already is getting his own safety robo. Finally got that seatbelt to click. We all know about those stories where you just can't get that thing to click.
But the overcharge does go down, and he's just going to try to take the fight straight up here.
Yeah, and he is, with some Zealots to tank here. One gets caught, unfortunately, at the back. Even Deer having a Stalker somehow from behind coming in here, forcing a blink back. This is a concave, though, and he's got more health on his Stalkers.
Oh, the Mothership Core coming in here as well. Deer is going to hold it off once again. 12 to 10 Stalkers, and Deer is even bringing back his DT that he had over at the basic Classic. And still no Nexus for Classic.
Yeah. In fact, Classic, 2 observers on the map. Deer never made one. He's actually just getting a robo, or rather an Immortal first on that robo. If he cleared up this observer with his own observer, then the DT could be a little bit more useful. But the DT is like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just go back home. He sees the observer still there. Could actually kill this probe that's about to maybe make a Nexus. Just going to go into the main instead, going to maybe force an overcharge to be used.
Classic once again trying to force this in. But at this point, Deer with the better concave and another photon overcharge. All that Classic can do is really just try to trade it out here. He is making 2 of his own DTs, and the Dark Shrine has not been scouted. And there is only 1 observer coming out right now.
Yeah, only just now, but he's definitely going to keep it really in mind as this goes on. But you know what? This DT force might actually be enough for him to push through and kill that Nexus. He's got an opportunity here, but now that the observer's out, he's going to arc on it.
Yeah, and Classic lost his own observer at this point, so kind of an awkward spot. He's going to go for a Warp Prism and a later Nexus and just try to play from very far behind. Worker counts right now 36 to 23 in Deer's favor. He's also got Immortals out and more Stalkers.
That Nexus for Classic just started as well. Not even close to being finished. And, just at this point in time, Deer could not be further ahead until that second observer comes out, in which place he'll be like slightly I'd say he's basically perfect. Like, how can he lose this game? A big Blink Stalker backstab is actually what Hero did to Classic a lot of the time in that last series in the group stage, but that was also against Classic not having Blink and playing very aggressively, whereas in this case Deer is playing very defensively and has his own Blink to help chase and eliminate these Stalkers. Look at this, he's got an observer here. He's so ahead that he's even sending Stalkers to try to intercept and corner the Stalkers to cut them off, to finish them off to win the game. Look at this, he's going to actually intercept this. He also might find the Warp Prism, barely does not. But look at this.
Stalkers coming in. Classic did have enough to one-shot them, but he has lost 2 of his own. And he just has to leave, and here does come the Warp Prism with the 2 DTs.
Let me check and see if Deer has an observer at home. He does have one at the natural. So, might find some damage in the main base. We'll see. 2 DTs actually splitting him up, so he will definitely lose some probes. Absolutely. The question is how many?
Yeah, second DT is going into the natural. Should be one-shotted there with the observer that we did have. But Deer at the same time is threatening the natural of Classic. And all the probes have been pulled to the natural. 6 have gone down, but Classic is going to lose both of his DTs here.
Yeah, the Warp Prism actually warping in a few more units at the natural again to go for some more harass. But he's just going to go for the fight here. 2 Immortals making this almost an easy victory here. Just ignoring the Nexus Cannon, targeting his units repeatedly on those Stalkers. GG. Deer going to take the lead, and we'll go into match point. I'm telling people, do not sleep on this guy in PvP when Classic has this many televised matches in the last 2 months to study.
Yeah, and don't sleep on him. I mean, he made it through so many other hard opponents. It wasn't PvP, right? He hasn't proven himself yet, but he's definitely on a roll here against very strong players. And keep in mind what Classic said as well in the interview. He was like, if I take the first game, I'm going to 3-0 this. Well, he took the first game, lost the second and third ones, and now he is on 1 more game to lose, and he's out in the round of 8.
He's on his last life here, Valdez. 1 more loss, and he is out. And Deer will have his best GSL performance since his championship, making a top 4. That is insane. This is actually so crazy if he can do this. And he's got the momentum. He looks strong. He's making all the right choices.
keep in mind he's going to be going up against either Biel, who he's already taken out in the round of 32, or Gumio, a guy who I definitely think if he makes it that far to the round of 4, he definitely could take that match.
Absolutely.
So guys, we are going to go straight to a quick 5-minute commercial break. We'll be right back.